Hello everybody and welcome to lesson 3. We're going to jump straight in to the first part of our lesson. Make sure you've got everything you need, a pencil, a rubber, some blank paper, a workbook, something like that, and also the lesson printed off. And we're going to jump straight in to the first part of our lesson. So our first lesson, or first part of the lesson, is going to be looking at Venn diagrams. And a Venn diagram is made up, you can see in this example here, is made up of a rectangle, and that rectangle is very important, and circles. And each circle is labelled, and in this Venn diagram here, this circle, it's more of an oval I have to say, is for even numbers, and this circle here is for prime numbers, and this circle here is for triangular numbers. And you can see that the circles overlap. So if a number is both triangular and even, it has to go in both circles. So it's going to go into this little area here. If a number is even, prime, and triangular, has to go in all three. So it goes into this little area here. Now I've drawn out a Venn diagram for us to do together. And I'm going to show you how to do Venn diagrams. And then you're going to go and do the Venn diagrams in the lesson yourself. So in my Venn diagram, I should finish off my title. So in my Venn diagram, there are 3 circles. Sometimes it'll be 2, and sometimes it'll be 3. And we've got odd numbers, factors of 24, and triangular numbers. And you can see they overlap, because some numbers will be in more than one of the circles. And we're going to do numbers 1 to 20. Now I think it's a good idea for the likes of factors of 24 or triangular numbers to maybe write those along the top before you start, because then you have all the answers at your fingertips. So let's do factors of 24 first of all. So remember what a factor is. It's a number that divides evenly into 24. Okay? And they always come in groups of 2. So the first group of 2 is 1 times 24. 1 divides into 24 times. 24 divides into 24 1 time. The next group, well, I'm going to try 2 because I've done 1, so 2. Yeah, so I can have 2 times 12. 2 times 12 makes 24. 2 goes into 24 12 times. 12 goes into 24 2 times. What about 3? Well, 3 does go into 24. 3 times 8. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 8 goes into 24 3 times. Now, can you notice that these numbers are getting closer together? Okay, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8. Now, the next group of factors will be 4 times 6. And 4 goes into 24 and 6 goes into 24. So the only number that we're now left with, because they're getting closer together, the only number I'm left with is 5. And 5 is not a factor of 24. So I've got all of the answers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 factors of 24. What about triangular numbers? Well, start with 0 and add 1 is 1. Then add 2 is 3. Then add 3 is 6. Then add 4 is 10. Then add 5 is 15. Add 6 is 21. I don't need to go any further because we're only going up to number 20. Right, now we're ready to put in the numbers into the Venn diagram. Now, I said that this rectangle here is very important, and it is very important because all of the numbers must go inside the rectangle. Now, some of the numbers will not go inside the circles. That's okay, but they must go inside the rectangle. So we're going to take them one at a time. Number 1. Well, number 1 is odd. Number 1 is a factor of 24. And number 1 is triangular. So it has to go on all 3 circles, and it's this area here. 2. Well, 2 is a factor of 24. It's not odd. So 2. 3. Well, 3 is odd. It's a factor of 24. And it's a triangular number. 4. It's a factor of 24. I think it's a good idea to divide your numbers up or split your numbers up with commas. 5. Well, it's definitely odd, isn't it? It's not in any of the other 2 circles. So 5. 6. Well, it's in these 2 here. So it's factors of 24 and triangular. 7. Just odd. 8. Factor of 24. 9. 10. See, there's triangular. And it's only triangular, so it's only going in the triangular circle. 11. It's just odd. 12. It's a factor of 24. And that's it. 13. 14. Now 14 is not in any of the lists, so it has to go outside of the circles, but inside the rectangle. 15. But 15 is triangular and it's odd, so it goes into that little area there that's in both of those circles. 16. 17. 18. 19. And 20. Okay, just check a couple of those. I always think it's good to check a couple. Yeah, so 14 is definitely outside. Now these 2 definitely in the middle. They're odd factors and they're triangular. Yeah, so I think I'm happy with that. Now I'd like you to try all of the Venn diagrams yourself. You probably need to try these on the paper. It's probably hard to do them in a workbook. So do them on the paper and then use the answer booklet to mark your work. Okay, So you pause the video there. Right, everybody, I hope you all got on well with the Venn diagrams. Don't forget to use the answer booklet to mark your work, see how well you've done. If you've made any mistakes, try and use the answers even to help you to work out where you've gone wrong. Right, the next part of our lesson is composite area. And we're going to do a composite area that is quite popular in the AQE test. It's where you have to find the area of the shaded part. So, I've drawn out a couple here just to help us, and then you're going to do the ones that are in the lesson. So, imagine this question here. You've got a garden, and the garden is 12 meters by 10 meters. Okay? And the question says that the path around the grass or the lawn in the garden is 1 meter wide. So that's why I've written 10 meters in here for the length of the grass, because it's 1 meter wide here and it's 1 meter wide here. So that would make the length of the lawn 10 meters. What would be the height of the lawn, or the breadth of the lawn? Well, the breadth of the garden is 10 meters, and that's a meter, and that's a meter, so it must be 8 meters. And that's important to write in before you start. Okay? Now, to find the area of the shaded part, or the path if you like, we have to first of all find the area of the whole garden. So the area of the whole garden is 12 by 10, length times breadth. Okay, so 12 by 10. Can you do that in your head? 120 square meters. And then you have to find the area of the grass. Now the grass, again, is a rectangle, so it's length times breadth, or length times height. And that's 10 times 8. And 10 times 8 is 80. Now, how can I use those two numbers to help find the area of the shaded part? Well, if I take away the grass, I'm going to be left with the path. So I'm going to take these away. So 0, 4, and 0. So the area of the shaded part is 40 centimeters squared, 40 meters squared, or 40 square meters. This one here, a wee bit more difficult because the numbers are a bit bigger. And let's say that the path this time is 1.5 meters wide. So it's 1.5 meters wide. So we need to work out, first of all, the length and the breadth of the lawn or the grass. So it's 1.5 meters here, and it's 1.5 meters here. So that's 3 in total. So I need to take 3 from the 15, and that leaves me with 12. Same here. This will be 3, or 1.5, and this will be 1.5. So to take away 3, and I'm left with 9. Okay. So let's find the area of the shaded part, or the area of the path. So 15 length times breadth, 15 times 12 equals, now you might be able to do that in your head, 10 15s, well that's 150, 2 15s, that's 30, so 150 add 30 is 180. Now if you can't do it in your head, Just take the time and do a proper long multiplication sum here. Doesn't matter how you get the answer, so long as you get it right and you know what you're doing. Now the area of the lawn here is 12, that's length, times breadth, this is 9. So 12 nines, well, 12 tens, or 10 12s would be 120, so we only want 9 of them. So take a 12 away, 108. So 12 nines is 108. And again, we want to find the area of the shaded part, so we're going to take the grass away from the area of the garden. Okay, some of you might be able to do that in your head. I'm going to do it out the long way. 10 take away 8 is 2. 7 take away 0 is 7. 1 take away 1 is 0. The area of the path is 72 meters squared. So I want you to do your sums like that and work your way through all 7 of those composite area. So pause the video there and take a bit of time and work your way through the sums. Now the next part of our lesson, in fact the next 2 parts of our lesson, are going to be looking at triangles. So this first part is looking at angles in isosceles triangles. Now can you remember the names of the different triangles and what those names mean? So the first one is an equilateral triangle, and there's a clue in the word equal. Okay, and that tells me that all 3 angles are equal in size and all 3 sides are equal in length. For an isosceles triangle, the one we're looking at here, only 2 sides are equal and only 2 angles are the same size. And then you get scalene triangles, and none of the sides are equal and none of the angles are equal. And then you also get right angle triangles as well. And a right angle triangle can be scalene and it can also be isosceles. Well, all of these triangles are isosceles. So 2 angles are the same size. Let's just look at the triangles and see if you can work out which angles are going to be the same. So here we have this one here. If we look at it carefully, that angle and that angle are the same. For this one, that angle and that angle are the same. For this one, that angle and that angle are the same. So it's kind of tipped over on one side. In this one, angle D and that angle are the same. And in this one here, angle E and that angle are the same. And this one, 81 and that angle are the same. Now we're going to do a couple of these together and then you're going to do the rest of them yourself, okay? So let's pick one to do together. I'm going to look at the first one, okay? So I'm going to draw it out in my book. I'm not a very good artist, so you'll have to bear with me. And that's not a particularly good drawing. If I was to measure that angle, I know by looking at it, it's more than 52, but it will serve our purpose today. We're looking to find the size of angle A. Just pull that down a wee bit so you can see that. Okay. So we said that this angle and this angle are the same. I can tell that just from looking at it. And in the test it will be obvious which angles are the same. They will draw it in such a way that you know. So I can immediately pop in the 52 degrees. Now how does that help me find angle A? Well, I know that all three angles add up to 180. So if I take these two away from 180, I'm left with A. So 180, you might be able to do this in your head. I'm going to do it in my head. I know that 52 and 52 make 104. So 180 take away 104 is 76 degrees. So A is 76 degrees. Now what about angle D? Okay, so we've got 45 and then D and D. So I'm going to draw that out. Just make sure I draw this one a wee bit better. Okay. Not sure that's any better, but it looks a bit curved, doesn't it? So we've got angle D and 45 degrees. So we want to find angle D. Now I know by looking at this triangle that angle D and this angle here are both the same. Again, it will always be obvious just by looking at it. So if I take 180 degrees this time, remember that's always going to be what you get when you add all three angles up together. I'm going to take the 45 away and I'm left with 135. Now 135 is this angle and this angle together. But if they're both the same size, we can divide this by 2 and it will get us the size of D. So I'm going to do that. 135 divide by 2. 2 into 1 doesn't go. 2 into 13 goes 6 times, remainder 1. 2 into 15 goes 7 times, remainder 1. Now, very seldom will the answer be the remainder number. Okay. Sometimes the questions are worded in such a way that it wants you to write the answer down as a remainder. But usually, they want you to keep going. So I'm going to add in the tenths column and bring my remainder 1 over. Like that. That's 10. 2 into 10 goes 5. So 67 and a half, or 67.5 degrees. Okay. So I want you to use that to help you with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 triangles, but we've done 2 of them together. So it's really only 4. And remember to use the answer booklet once you're finished to see how well you've done. We're going to pause the video there to give you a chance to do that. Now, here we come to a very difficult part of the transfer test. It's questions based on right-angled triangles. Now you know the size of a right-angled triangle is 90 degrees. Now I'm just pointing here at the right angle in these triangles. You know it's a right angle because it makes it's like the corner of a page, okay, which is a right angle. Now, the question says, if you can just even read it on the screen there, you'll have it in front of you anyway. It says, angle A is 30 degrees bigger than B. So A is 30 degrees bigger than B. If you look at this one, angle C is 44 degrees bigger than D. So this one here is 44 degrees bigger than D. And the question will always say, you know, what is the size of A, or what's the size of C and D? So you'll have two separate answers for that. Well, I've drawn out a couple for us just to look at together. Okay, I'm going to bring this up here so you can see it nice and clearly. So look at the first triangle. It says A is 40 degrees bigger than B. A is 40 degrees bigger than B. Now, how do we do that? Well, we know this is a right angle, so that's 90 degrees. Okay? So if that's 90 degrees, if I add A and B together, I will get 90. If I have to go to A and B, that's 90 degrees. Now you don't need to write that down. This is me just writing it down so you can see it. A add B is 90. Now, if I divide 90 by 2, I get 45. Okay? Now the question says that A is 40 degrees bigger. So what do we do now? Well, what we need to do is half this 40 degrees. 40 divided by 2 equals 20 degrees. And we're going to add 20 degrees onto A because it's the bigger angle, and we're going to take 20 away from B because it's the smaller one. So A equals, so 20 add to 45. So 45, that's what we got when we halved the 90. 45 add 20 is 65 degrees. B, it's the smaller one, so we're going to take the 20 away. 45 take away 20 is 25. Now, if we've done this correctly, A will be 40 degrees bigger than B, and they'll both add up to 90. Let's just check. Well, there's 40 degrees difference between them, and 60 add 20 is 80, add 5 and 10 is 90. So just reflect on what we've done there. A add B is 90, and we've divided that by 2 to split that number in half. Now to find the size of A, you have to half the difference in your question, which is 40. Half it is 20. Add that 20 onto the A, take that 20 away from the B. Try this one. It's one of those I think that you get stronger at as you do them. So again, it's a right angle triangle. So these two add up to 90. C add D equals 90. Now if I divide that by 2, I share the 90 degrees evenly between the two of them. Now I know that's not the answer yet, but that helps me. Now, it says that there's a 45 degree difference between them. C is 45 degrees smaller than D. Okay, so what we need to do is take the 45 degrees, the difference between the smaller and the bigger angle, and divide it by 2. Can you do that in your head? So 45 divided by 2 is 22 and a half. Now to find the size of C, which is the smaller angle, you take the 22 and a half away from the 45. And to find the size of D, which is the bigger angle, you add the 22 and a half on to the 45. Let's do that. Angle C. Take 22 and a half away from 45 and you get 22 and a half. And letter D, add the 22 and a half on to the 45 and you get 67 and a half. Now again, if you have to do the sum out, that's perfectly fine. All that matters here is getting those answers correct. Now these are difficult. Okay, if you didn't quite get that, pause the video and then rewind it back. Okay, bring it back to the start of this section and watch that again until it clicks so that you understand what you have to do. And I want you then to use that to help you answer all of these questions here. Okay, so we're going to pause the video there. Okay, we're now going to jump into some English questions. Now the first English question we're going to look at are some parts of speech. Okay, and we're going to read through this together first of all, and then we'll talk through the parts of speech: noun, verbs, adjectives and adverbs. So you read it with me. Difficult. It is difficult living here. Same rain as yours. Snow, wind, hail. The seasons change, identical. We avoid each other on buses, streets, at work. You sort of speak through dry, gritted teeth and argue over moments of progress. But the future is an old man's dream, flowing like a raw burn. It's confusing living here. We can't stop, can't stop. The meaning is a lot less than this. So think about it. Think about things. Now in the test, don't get too worked up about words that you've never come across before, or words that you don't know the meaning of. There are always clues to work out the parts of speech, even if you don't know what the word is. For example, and I'm not using this example because you don't know the meaning of it. I know you do know the meaning of the word meaning, but look at the word meaning for me. The meaning is a lot less than this. Now, what part of speech is meaning? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? An adjective or an adverb? Well, I know just by looking at that it is a noun. How did I know? Because of this word, the. Now, this word the is called the definite article. You don't need to remember that, but you do need to remember that the word the always tells me there's a noun about. The meaning. Can you see any others with the word the? The future. The seasons. Seasons is a noun. Future is a noun. Meaning is a noun. Now you have to be careful with nouns because there might be an adjective in front of the noun. For example, we could put in here the real meaning. So even though we've got the word the, and then imagine the word real, that doesn't mean that real is a noun. Meaning is still the noun. Real is there to explain the noun. So that's an adjective. Now I can also see something similar with words like an or a. So take a word like a or an. You use an, remember, if the next word begins with a vowel, which this one does. But the future, so there's your noun, is an old man's dream. Now, I know that an usually indicates that there's a noun about, just like the word the. A man. An old man. So man is your noun, old is your adjective. Dream is also a noun. How do I know that? Because of this apostrophe which is used for possession. The man owns the dream. You can only own nouns. So if you see a possessive apostrophe like here, what is owned is always a noun. So dream is a noun. Man's, well, that's a possessive noun. Old, that's an adjective. And an, that's your indefinite article. But like the was the definite article. An old man's dream. So see, you see an or a, that's telling you something. There is a noun about. Just like here, look, flowing like a burn. Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is to use those wee tricks to help you with the parts of speech. We have 1, 2, we've got 3 pages, maybe more than that. 3, yeah, we've got 3 pages for the parts of speech. Okay, remember your verbs and your adverbs. I think verbs are a wee bit easier. Verbs are your doing words. Okay, so look for action in the text, and adverbs describe the verb. Okay, so we're going to leave it there. Pause the video and you can try the parts of speech yourself, and don't forget to be looking at the answer sheet. And again, if you've gone wrong somewhere, use the answers to try and go back to the text and try and work out why was it that you got it wrong. And the most important thing is to learn from your mistakes. So here we come to the last question in our lesson. It's called the lines question, and it's called the lines question or questions because each of the lines in our text are given a number. Line 1, line 2, line 3, and so on. And the questions, if I show you here, the questions will always be the number of the line where you find your answer. The very odd time, instead of a line number, you maybe have to write in the most appropriate missing word. But today we're going to stick to just using the lines as your answer. Okay? Now I don't think when you come to this one it's necessary to actually read through the story. It's probably right that by the time you do all the questions you'll have read through it anyway, But I think you can just jump straight into the questions. Now let's look at some of the questions. We'll set this over to the side. Which lines have missing apostrophes? Now in this one there's only one missing apostrophe. Now can you remember why we use apostrophes? Well, the easiest apostrophe is your missing letters. Say, for example, the word can't. C-A-N apostrophe T. So that apostrophe is showing that there's missing letters. Cannot. Or think of the word it's. It's a beautiful day. It's is made up of two words. It is. And that apostrophe, IT apostrophe S, shows that there's a missing letter. It's a missing I. So that's one reason for an apostrophe. Another reason for an apostrophe will be ownership. So let's say Sarah in your class, let's say this was her ruler. So this would be Sarah's ruler. She owns it. And that would be Sarah, apostrophe S. The apostrophe goes after Sarah because Sarah owns the ruler. Or you could have the girls' table. There, the table belongs to the girls. So it would be girls, apostrophe, table. The apostrophe goes after girls because that's who owns the table. It's the girls' table. If you were to put the apostrophe after the L, girls' table, it sounds exactly the same. But this time the table would be owned by just one girl. So you have to find a line in this story, in the passage, that has a missing apostrophe. Now I haven't told you if it's a contraction, a missing letter, like this one here, there, and turn to look back at there. Oh, I shouldn't have used that one as an example, and you'll find out now in a minute. But that is a contraction. There, they are. Okay. I can't find any others. There's a missing apostrophe, but I haven't told you whether it is a contraction or whether it's possession. You have to find that out yourself. Then the second question, it says, which lines have commas used incorrectly? Now, this question will have a comma and then a capital letter. And I'm going to show you one of them. Here we have one here. Okay? After the word top. The wave surged forward, rushing between the rocks and splashing over the top. Okay? See the word the top. Okay? So top in this particular phrase or sentence is a noun. The waves surged forward, rushing between the rocks and splashing over the top. Now, how do I know this comma is used incorrectly? Because the next word begins with a capital letter. And it shouldn't have a capital letter unless it's the start of a sentence. And if that's the start of a sentence, what should that be? Well, that should be a full stop. Well, there's a few examples of that in the text. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've given you one of them, so you only have to find 3. Now here we have which lines need commas. Now, why would you use a comma? Think why you would use a comma. Well, you would use a comma if you were writing a list. Okay? You would use commas if you were writing a list. But that's not the only time that you would use a comma. You would use a comma if you were adding in some extra information into a sentence. Let me give you an example. So let's make up a very, very simple sentence. Okay, the boy ran home crying. Very simple sentence, okay? Now, we're not told in this simple sentence why he was crying. What if we added in some extra information? The boy, comma. Now we're going to add in an explanation of that. The boy having fallen and cut his elbow, comma, ran home crying. So this time we've inserted some extra information to explain why the boy ran home crying. So whenever you're looking for these missing commas, look for lists, but also look for information that's been added into the sentence. Which lines have words which are used incorrectly? And that's where I said I shouldn't have shown you that one, because if I turn to line 10, that's an example. So words that have been used incorrectly are words that sound correct when you say them, but they're not the correct spelling. So if I look at this one again, they ran across it and turned to look back at their 2 sets of footprints. Now that sounds right, doesn't it? But it's not the correct spelling. It's a homophone, isn't it? It's a word that sounds the same, but it's a different spelling. What's the correct spelling of their 2 sets of footprints? T-H-E-I-R. It's what we call a possessive pronoun. And turn to look back at their 2 sets of footprints. So again, I want you to try and find for me how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I've given you 1, so 4. Now, don't mix up words used incorrectly with spelling errors. A spelling error is where the word is used correctly, but the wrong spelling is used. Okay, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 examples of that. So for example, let me just give you one here. Look at line 3 with me. Beyond them was a stretch of massive boulders fallen in times past from the cliff face. Now, what words are spelled incorrectly there? Well, you've got the word boulders. It should be B-O-U-L-D-E-R-S. Large, really big, large stones, or big stones, okay? As he says, massive boulders. So these were really large boulders, or really large stones. Okay, so you want to try and find some spelling errors. And then I've just given you a few questions, like comprehension questions, just at the bottom. Find the words or group of words which mean to roll forward fast and strong, in a wild and excited way, a penetrating coldness. Okay, so take your time over that. That can be a bit tricky. You just have to take your time, keep your wits about you. Okay, and use the answer booklet again to help you with the answers. And if you've gone wrong, use the answer booklet just to point you in the right direction, and try and work out why you've gone wrong. Try and work out why your answer is not right and it's a different answer. So well done for making your way through to the end of lesson 3. At the end, you'll notice there's some spellings for you to learn. So look, cover and spell. So look at the word, copy the word out, cover the word, try and spell it with it covered, and try and spell it again. Hopefully after 3 times you'll have learned how to spell it. Just don't copy it. Try and say the word over to yourself. Try and work out why it has the spelling it does. So well done for getting to the end, as I said, to lesson 3. And I'm going to stop the video there. And that's the video finished.